Hey gang, it is Wednesday. You know what that means? That means it's hump day. I'm here with me compadres, Chad and JB, who are going to come up here in just a second. This is Dentist in the Know. This is your backstage pass for current trends, politics, and education in the dental world. It is live. And tonight it is over a delicious bottle of Amarone from the Valpolicella district in Tuscany. And anyway, you see my compadres here, Dr. Chad Duplantis, Dr. Jennifer Bell. You all know her as JB. We are all practicing dentists. We're all educators. And we are all here to bring you in the know. Well, obviously, we have an incredible young lady who you have already heard about. She's an amazing young dentist who is just killing it in the world of clinical dentistry, in the world of education, in the world of social media, especially. So Joyce the Dentist is with us tonight. I have not officially met her yet, so I'm kind of excited about this because she's doing incredible things on social media, and from what I understand, doing some really incredible things clinically as well. So looking forward to that conversation. But JB, I think you mentioned a couple of things to me that we needed to talk about.
Some are a little more controversial than others. So y'all ready?
I love controversy.
I knew you would, Jeff. We're going to go back into the memory bank for just a little bit on Kellogg, the company. If you'll remember, and I'm sure they're still actively participating, but Kellogg and Pew were very active for quite some time with funding the DHAT training programs and really pushing the idea of mid-level providers. Some of you may be in favor of it. Many of you are not. That's a whole debate for another night. But it was interesting that just this week, Kellogg kind of made the news in the dental world because they started fighting back pretty hard on England specifically has instituted some pretty hard regulation on high sugar, high fat, and high salt foods, including sugary cereals, which Kellogg is known for manufacturing. And Kellogg was not taking that very kindly. And so now they're taking it to the courts. And it's kind of an interesting turn of events because England has cited the reason they're going after high sugar, high fat, and high salt diets specifically was for tooth decay and obesity. So here you have a company who's fighting to ensure that the products stay on the shelves, but they're also fighting to make sure that dentistry is also being provided by individuals of lesser skill sets. That's my opinion. I told you it was kind of controversial, but there it is. The other interesting piece of news this week was the NIOSH, we'll just call them the NIOSH, because I don't know if you pronounce that or not, out of the CDC is now really looking at aerosol distribution and specifically have targeted in on workplace hazards within the dental office. So they're looking at different evacuators, which we talked, you saw an ad before we opened up tonight from Q Optics. They have an option for us to consider to help control aerosolized matter. But they're also looking at ventilation systems and other things that would be a much larger regulatory oversight in dental practices. And I think we all get a little squirrely when it comes to new regulations coming into the dental practice, increasing the cost of what we do every day. Yes, we always want to keep everybody safe, but where's that, natural balance going to fall? But I do think it's important to put on your radar that that is something that they're starting to look at and could ultimately result in some regulatory action imposed on dental offices in the next couple of years, I think would be reasonable. The last thing I'm going to mention, and we're going to open the story up, and then I'd love for Jeff and Chad to come back to discuss it. Hot topic today on Facebook. It's been a hot topic in North Carolina for a couple of months now, is the new dental school that's opening up at High Point University here, supposed to be in August of this year. This is really fascinating. And Paul Goodman is constantly talking about dental education, where it's heading, how do we afford the evolution of dental education. High Point University is opening this will be our third dental school in North Carolina. It's a super interesting model. They received a large funding from Dr. Workman. You may know Dr. Workman. He started Heartland Dental. So, of course, that brings up some red flags of DSO, influence, I think, on that educational profile. The other interesting thing that's been posted, and I have to bring this up because I think it's super interesting, is that it mentions that there's no prerequisites for the school. So here's a statement from HPU. No required prerequisite courses and standardized tests. We are DAT optional. There's no application or supplemental fee. The only cost is a specific ALTUS CASPER assessment, if invited, an early commitment option for priority evaluation, interview, and admissions offers, and a rolling admission process. It is currently seeking CODA accreditation, so it hasn't received that yet, but they are accepting applications. Another interesting thing is they are not participating in the ADIA ADSAS application, which probably most of us on this discussion tonight had participated in that process. And then there was one other interesting little tidbit, and free CE for life. So tuition currently at High Point University will be $82,500 per year. But it will include continuing education for life for all graduates. So Jeff and Chad, I say,
I'm bringing myself back. I
what
can't take
say
it anymore.
you?
Look at the sidebar with all the Facebook user. I was silenced, and I'm like, you can't silence me, Chad.
I know.
This is all stuff I need to get my voice out on. I mean, I'm like, this is all right. So first of all, as to the Kellogg thing, I could not agree with you more. How do you talk bad about making dental health better by reducing sugar intake and then suggest that we should reduce the care that people receive with lower educated providers? Okay, that's said. Now, second.
Yeah.
Second, they can't participate in how are they going to get accreditation if they're not following the traditional guidelines that we've had to get into dental school? There's no way that it can be CODA accredited. And then as far as the ADIA process, they couldn't do that either. Because of, these are all agreed upon standards, and like them or not, I think that should be across the board. I mean, I guess if you're a private university, you have, the choice to do whatever you want. But I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of indoctrination in the ways of better business training than we got, but maybe not the right business training.
I think that that's a valid point about probably better business training. And I think that's fair. The other thing that I failed to mention is that they won't actually have students or patients in the school. I believe they're going to open a bunch of clinics remotely to be able to see patients. So the interesting thing is that's what Heartland is actually really good at doing. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm all for access to care. Like, I'm all for some of these outreach clinics, and I think it's more realistic for students. I mean, some of the best experience that I had in dental school was when I did my externship, and it was basically working in a clinic, and the oversight was not quite as tight because we had proven our clinical chops by that point. And it was just more like being in real practice. So you know, I think that's a win-win because people who need access to care are able to get it. And I think it's good experience for the students. So I really don't have an issue with that part of it. It's just pretty much the other 90%.
Well, I do think if they get accredited based on these credentials, like no prerequisites required, no actual patients on site, no idea application, no standardization of enrollment, game on. I mean, that it just takes one tipping point for a school, for what is a private school to I don't know, massage the rules enough that they get through this process and then off to the races for, and I hate to point out the 1980s again, everybody, but this is exactly what happened before when we overflooded the market, both pharmacists
100%.
and dentists.
Yeah.
And it was a massive reset, and a lot of dentists left the field altogether. Numerous dental schools closed because we saturated the market with a workforce that had nowhere to go. So here we go.
I think that if I had $32 million, I probably wouldn't donate it to the start of a dental school.
You think?
What would you do with it, Chad?
What would you do with 32 million?
That's pretty egregious. I mean, 32 million bucks. I mean, I think I might have entered the wrong part of the profession if I don't have 32 million bucks to throw at a new school.
It's probably a pretty good tax break.
I'd imagine it is. There's so much that I want to say that I probably shouldn't.
We've already said everything we shouldn't.
I do have a big problem with the DAT being, you know, you've got 99+% of the dental students in the nation that will have had to proven their worth through the DAT. And then you've got this, that's just, you know, there's the whole CODA thing. There's so much to say, but we'll just have to see where it falls and what happens. And I think that hopefully things will change. So.
Yeah, I think you bring up a super interesting point about eliminating it, like that push. There's two problems with that. When we take away the DAT from the enrollment process, whether you believe in it or not, if they require something in addition to that, now we've just increased the cost for everybody to apply to dental school, which I'm not in favor of. It's already expensive and cumbersome as it is. But two, how do you standardize in any way students amongst a population? And I don't agree with only accepting students based on their GPAs and DAT scores. I think to get well-rounded candidates who really know what they're getting into and really understand the complexity of the profession is an incredibly important process of finding the right candidates. And that doesn't happen on a DAT or a GPA assessment. But there's got to be some pieces like the GPA, the DAT, the interview, the essays.
It's part of the process.
It's all part of that builds a full, well-rounded candidate.
I was on the admissions committee for our dental school, and the DAT weighed rather heavily. Their GPA weighed rather heavily, depending upon which college they went to prior. I mean, the interview was a small portion, and so you know, there's so much that goes into that process, and it all needs to be weighted appropriately. But if you take that out, that's a big portion of the equation. So
Agreed.
That's my thoughts.
I
Wow.
agree.
It's heavy stuff.
Sorry. And
No,
that's the news.
This is what I live for. I mean,
it's got to go
Jersey Boy
one way or
wants
the
to
other.
scrap.
Somebody said they would love to see other dental schools follow that model, and I think it's got to go one way or the other. I think we've
Yeah,
No.
That
That was me, Chad, and that was a
Oh.
conversation with Deuce.
Oh, sorry.
You know,
sorry.
who
I
and
couldn't see who it
Deuce
was.
had a
I couldn't
really
see the
interesting.
context of it.
Yeah, it's out of context
Sorry.
because Deuce said, you know, because I was talking about how I like the model of instead of bringing patients to a dental school, which we all know the inefficiencies of how the dental schools bring patients through the clinics. I mean, completely inefficient. And I think having these out clinics that students can go to is a fantastic idea. So that's what I was saying I'd like to see more dental schools do, is bring patients to out clinics that the dental students could work at, answering the access to care question, and at the same time giving the dentist good clinical experience. But no, not the admissions model. So sorry.
No, I agree. Well, let's go to our guest because we've kept her waiting long enough. So I don't mean to be rude. We could talk about this all night. We can come back to it after our guest. But
she can talk to us about it.
She could probably. Yeah, I mean, she's an educator. I mean, she actually taught at USC. So let's hear what she has to say.
There she is.
Hi.
Hey, Joyce.
Hi.
Joyce, how are you?
Good. How are you guys? I'm just listening to you guys because I saw this on Instagram. I saw people talking about this, but I didn't really know the details of the new school. A lot of the newer dentists are not happy about the new dental schools because I think new dentists are having trouble finding jobs, and they're just like, why are they opening more schools that there's more dentists when there's not even enough jobs and people are not being compensated properly by dental insurances and all that. So it's interesting. Thank you for the breakdown.
Yeah, JB's always really, really good at that. So Jeff, would you like to introduce our guest?
I don't have the intro information, but I will say that I had to research you a little bit, Dr. Joyce. I mean, I've seen you on Instagram, but I didn't know a lot about your background so much. So I know you went to UOP, so you knew Farood Hakim and Mark Geisberger, I'm sure, were some of your compatriots, right?
Yeah.
And I know you've taught at USC. Are you still there?
No, I left in 2020.
Okay, so you left in 2020. But really, what she is really well known for is being Dr. Joyce the Dentist and being an awesome cosmetic clinician. And I know you've got a metal-free practice. I know that a lot of your interests are in taking care of the anxious patient, which I think is something a lot of young dentists need to hear about because, you know, there's just not a lot of talk about psychology of dentistry, which I think plays a big role. Do you want to start there? Would you like to talk about that first?
The psychology of dentistry?
Yeah, because part of what I went to your website for your office, and part of what was talked about was taking care of the anxious patient. So it's one thing to say I'd like some cosmetic work done, and I know you've done a lot of work with virtual dentistry and virtual makeovers, and but taking care of people who are really scared to do it. Do you want to start there?
Sure. So my office, just to give you a little background, my office is a small office. Like, people are shocked when they come to the office because they think I'm running like a really big production, but it's only 644 square feet and it's 2 chairs. I basically have 4 days of work and I work 3 of those days, and we have hygiene on 2 of those days. And then I don't want hygiene on the other two. So if I have a particularly anxious patient, I'll bring them in on a day when I don't have hygiene so that there's not so much traffic and it's peaceful and calm. I hate jumping from room to room when there's somebody who's really, really anxious. And I think it's nice to just take time. So that's kind of like the way I've always foresaw my office. I didn't want to see volume. I wanted to spend enough time with people. And I think if you spend the time they get to know you, then you can start to introduce dentistry slowly. As far as like dentistry, we do offer, you know, painless injections at the STA. And I think the STA is great. I don't know if you guys have used it, but the anesthetic machine, the only thing with that is that it's an added cost for us. And it takes freaking forever to give an injection because it's slow. It's like droplet by droplet. So I don't see a lot of practices utilizing this if they have a fast-paced environment. And so just like the slower pace, I think helps.
You know, it's interesting because I traditionally give very, very slow injections, which kind of drives my patients nuts. But I had that machine in our office, and I was like, yeah, this is about the pace I usually go. I don't know if it's helping me that much, but I do think it's fantastic for those that do have a tendency to go too fast, get painful injections. It's an amazing tool. Amazing tool.
Yeah,
it's really great on palatals.
On palatals, yeah.
Oh my God. There's nothing better for a palatal injection.
I mean, the thing about the wand, I think it was called the wand at some point, but patients don't really know that that's an injection because that's not what they think of when they think of an injection. So like sometimes I don't see kids a lot, but I used to just put the syringe on the tray. They would focus on that. And then I would give them the injection with the wand. It's a lot of like a mental game. They think that they're getting an injection with that thing, but they don't realize they're getting an injection with something else. And, you know, injections in the mouth actually don't hurt that much. Like I've gotten Botox and filler that hurts more, but it's just like mentally people don't like getting injections in the mouth. It makes sense.
Joyce, are you fee for service?
I'm not. So I'm working slowly towards that. We just dropped Delta this month. So I'm scared, but I know we're ready for it.
Yeah, but you know what is really interesting? Because by the way that you talked, I thought for sure you were fee for service. And I don't mean that negatively. I mean it positively because I think you're a ray of hope to a lot of California dentists that want to practice a certain way. And I think you have a lot to share as to how they can practice that way and still maintain happiness. Because regardless of what you say on Instagram, you're one of the happiest people I've ever seen. So, you know, I think it's really fantastic that you're able to do so in the state of California and actually subscribe to insurance at this point in time. I know you're working towards changing that, but you've built a pretty great practice not changing that. So
well, and I'll add one of the most competitive states in the country. And so back to the point of, you know, there's so many people graduating from dental school, adding more dental schools. They're coming out with so much debt. And I mean, I know like, especially where you went to school at UOP, I mean, people are coming out with a ton of debt. So it's almost a slap in the face to see, you know, more dental students being thrown into, or excuse me, more dentists being thrown into the mix. So, but you did something really special, like coming out of the gate. It sounds like you did you know that the path that you wanted to take, or did it evolve, or just tell me what your thoughts were coming out of school and how you got from that point to where you are now? Because I think that'll help a lot of people that are really feeling that they're in too big of a competitive market right now.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't even want to own a business when I was in dental school. So I didn't pay attention to anything. My mom, by the way, my mom's a dentist. She owned her own practice and she worked so much and she worked so hard. And I was like, I never want to do that. But I kept working for other people, and I realized it just was never going to be happy unless I did things my own way. And so it took me a while to build up the courage to open my own practice. And then when I purchased an older practice, I took on a lot of insurances. I mean, that practice already took on insurances, but their new patient flow was really, really low. And my mom told me, my mom was like, don't buy this practice. It's a dead practice. And I just loved it. I don't know why. I was just like so stuck on this practice. Looking back, I'm like, yeah, that was a dead practice. I shouldn't have bought that. I mean, momentum is very, very important. But I was stuck in the way that I was thinking. And so I took insurance because that's the easiest thing. I was like, let's just get the new patients flowing. And now I'm at the point where I'm dropping. So it's like I built up these patients. Now they're all leaving, or I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'm scared. We'll see. But there's a potential that they're leaving. It's like I'm growing in reverse, but in a different direction. And so I felt like that a lot throughout my journey as a dentist. A few things that I think are important for my happiness level is that I've been able to keep things very tight, because one of the biggest problems in California is having high rent. And by having a 644 square foot office, I don't work just to pay rent. And that's been like the key. That's been a lifesaver for me. I even was at the point where my building got sold recently, and I was thinking I was going to get kicked out, but I was thinking about moving my practice to Newport and building out like a very nice Instagram worthy office and like shelling out the money. And I do think like being in a nicer area draws in some of those like cosmetic patients. So I really weighed all this, but in the end, patients find me from the internet, and I can't beat having low rent. And that is a big part of like me being able to be chill and take some of these like little risks that I'm taking. Like I feel like dropping Delta is a risk, but I think that I can handle it because my overhead is low compared to a lot of people. And I can make my little spot cute.
I think that's a great idea. And I think one of the things that I really hone in on, and a lot of the things I speak about is the experience. And it sounds like, with the way that you minimize the traffic and you cater to these patients with high anxiety and stuff like that, that you really do a great job in creating an experience for the patients. And I think that that's what's going to continue to carry you. I don't know that I'd be too fearful. I mean, I'd drop them slowly, but I don't know that I'd be too fearful. I think you're going to do fantastic.
Thank you.
You've got the name already, but where did Instagram come in? Where did Joyce the Dentist come in? And then where did the teaching at USC come in? How did that all fit into your plan?
What? I don't remember. Okay, so I was definitely teaching at that time. I started my Instagram February 2018. And it was just because I saw that other people had Instagram. But at the time, there weren't like Instagram dentists. There were bloggers and stuff like that. And there were dental practices that were opening an Instagram to be sort of like a website. And I didn't really even know anything about Instagram when I just signed up and I started going on it. But I remember I sat with a student who was kind of big on Instagram, and I was like, how do you use this thing? And she's like, it's tough. It's like really hard to grow. You have to keep posting, blah, 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 blah. So I just started following her and seeing what her style was. And then I started posting random things, especially video. Because I didn't really have too many like professional photos of myself. So I just put up my camera and started making videos and editing them and putting them up. That's fast content. That's easy to do. And then at a certain point, then I started taking professional photos and all that. But Instagram just kind of fell in my lap. But also, I don't want to say that as in it's easy. It definitely like there's a learning curve, and I learned it the hard, slow way, but it's been really beneficial for my practice. I think I had grown the Instagram to 4,000-ish followers, which, by the way, back then it was a little bit easier to grow than it is now. So I don't want people to be like, oh, that's a lot of followers. Back then, that was maybe 4 months, 5 months of me being on Instagram. So I got my first patient through Instagram, and then I was like, this works. And
Nice.
I just like went into it.
I love it, but that's innovative, right? I mean, that is, I love that story, because that's how we, in a competitive market, we need to think outside the box. We need to work differently than the way we used to get patients. Not the way your mom or me get patients.
Yeah, I tried a lot of traditional marketing, and I felt like the growth was there, but it was very slow. What Instagram has done for me is that it's given me a voice beyond what people expect. Like, so one of the things I struggled with a lot, because I went to UOP and I did the accelerated program. I graduated when I was 23 from dental school. And I just felt like I was always judged by my age and by being very, very young. And I always felt like I had to work extra hard to prove myself to patients. And even if I worked a little bit harder, or even if I had more years of experience than like another associate, I felt like I was never given that benefit of the doubt. But with Instagram, people start following me and they come in knowing what I look like and seeking me out. And that was a completely like a huge flip in my career, because I had spent so many years of my life just trying to prove myself. And once people started seeking me out, I was like, wow, this feels really good. And the more that people started doing that, the more I actually built my confidence as a clinician too. It's really hard to feel confident when you feel like you're not like readily accepted by people. And I know that my skills were there. And for a really long time, I obsessed sort of over like dentistry, like the actual like dental nerding out. And I didn't really understand the marketing aspect of it. But now I kind of understand that marketing is important too. And presenting yourself so that when people come in, they know who you are already, and they're bought into like your story, and they're bought into whatever treatment that you want them to accept, because Instagram provides for them you or who you are in the absence of dentistry. And then once they come into the office, the pieces come together, because the dentistry pairs with what you had offered on Instagram, which is kind of like relatability or trust, or their ability to really connect with you, which you don't get very easily from a 1-hour appointment, new patient appointment.
I think Jeff kind of touched on the psychology of dentistry, but for me, you've touched on the piece that I've really seen and felt for myself for a really long time. When patients believe in me, they get the best me, the best version of myself. And I don't do anything different, but I don't have self-doubt. There's no, like, when I sit down to execute a treatment plan and they're bought into me and my brand and my skill set, psychologically, somehow it always works out. They get the best version of myself. And the dentistry sort of comes out really easily and intuitively. When a patient doubts you and you're sitting there and you know every move you make, their eyebrows are raising up and they're like, that's different, or my old dentist didn't do it that way, or whatever it is, it starts to play like psychological games in your brain, and you're thinking, oh gosh, did they like me? Do they not like me? And crap, that contact isn't quite the shape that I wanted it to be, and I'm going to screw around with it too long. And anyway, I think there's a whole learning curve with coming, or in the idea that the psychology or building your brand and being true. And Joyce, I've followed you on Instagram. I believe you're true to who you are, and you put yourself in very, very vulnerable situations on Instagram. But in doing that, I think you take a lot of the doubt that comes along. We all have doubt, but the folks that sit down in your chair are bought in. They appreciate you. And that's why I think you driving Delta is going to be no big deal, because because patients that are seeking you for insurance and insurance alone are the ones that are playing those same psychological games. The ones that show up in your chair and are bought into your brand and your skill set, they're going to excel, and your dentistry is going to excel right along with them. So, you know, that's it.
And don't be fearful of the ones that do leave, because if you created that experience, they're going to come right back.
They do.
And I trust me, I've seen it. I've seen patients leave our practice for insurance reasons, and then 6-8 months later they come back, and you know, and I truly believe it's because of the experience that we create and the experience that you create. And so I think that you may see some attrition, but it sounds like with the limited space that you have, that you're going to have no problem filling the chair for a while.
Yeah. I mean, 2 chairs is, I think a lot of people think that's too small, but it feels perfect. Like I don't want to work more than 3 days clinically. So I work 3 days clinically, and then I have an associate there 1 day, just so the office can be open 4 days. 3 days is hard for people.
I think that's a smart play. I mean, you set your lifestyle first, which most of us did not do. I mean, honestly, we were just taught work your ass off. And at some point when you're really, really busy and you can't take it anymore, then bring on an associate. And a lot of us have lived that life. So I don't think, I mean, I think you planned it well. Having that low overhead model where you could say, all right, I don't have to work just to pay rent. I can do this in 3 days a week. And then that 4th day where the associate comes in is total gravy. I love that. I mean, I just, it's just really well thought out. And this is what I always say to people. It's like, don't feel like you have to fit a certain mold. Decide what it is that's going to make you happy. Decide what it is that's going to bring you the most fulfillment and allow you to pay your bills in this profession, and go for it. And it sounds like that's what you've done.
By accident. Yeah.
Well,
whatever.
That's okay. I mean, honestly, I think 90% of my life has been an accident, but if you're not willing to try things, you know, that's the part of it that counts is, okay, I'm willing to try this, because a lot of what you've talked about, people are too scared to try. And the fact that you're trying it is a big statement, and that's why you're succeeding. Some of it's going to work, some of it won't, but the stuff that's working, you figured out a way to have real enjoyment in this profession, which takes a lot of us an incredible amount of time to do.
All right, Joyce, I want to talk to you about mommyhood and being a dentist. I'm a mom of 3, so I can relate. What are some of the unexpected challenges that you've faced in being a business owner and being a mom, and some of the actual, you know, incredible moments that you've got to enjoy as being a business owner as well?
I think when I became a mom is when I started making a lot of these decisions for my practice, because before I felt like I was just like going to work because I just, you know, I have a business, so I just show up. And then when I had the baby is when I was like, mentally, I was like, okay, I'm going to work. That means I'm away from the baby. That time at work not only needs to be like my time at work, but it needs to be worth it, whatever worth it means to me. And that also meant that it needs to feel fulfilling, the type of dentistry that I want to do primarily, and also being compensated fairly for the amount of time that I'm spending away from the baby. So the baby was great for me strategizing what I wanted to do with the office. And I didn't realize that I was just like kind of going to work like it was a hobby before. So that was great. It's tough though, because of childcare. I'm very lucky with childcare, but even with the 2, like I have my mom watching and my mother-in-law watching, then we're talking about like daycare, and I start work at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I'm like, who's going to take him to daycare?
Yeah.
Like all the timing stuff. It's a little tough, but I think it's figure outable. I think having children was like one of my biggest fears before having a baby. I never wanted to even have children. Like, no. I take that back. I wanted to have children, but once I started adulting and being married and having the business, I was like, I don't want children. This doesn't make sense for me. And I always wanted to push it off. But then I finally just did it, and I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
You just have the one?
Yes. I'm working on a second one.
Oh, okay. Hey, there we go.
All right. Hey, let's keep it PG, people.
I'm drinking water. Otherwise, I would be drinking wine too.
Well, good. Well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
JB, did you have another question? Because I have.
No, go for it.
Okay, so on your Instagram stuff, I want to go to that for just a second. I mean, 54,000 followers, that's amazing. But can you think of one point in your Instagram history, and I gather it's 4 years based upon what you said, one point that really caused just this huge increase? Was there a turning point, or was it just kind of a steady influx?
No, for me, so everyone's account is different. I've been on there for a long time. I think I'm specifically one of those accounts that started and was just really consistent. I never had a viral moment. I never blew up. I have on other platforms, like on TikTok, I've had viral videos, but on Instagram, for whatever reason, I just have never produced anything that is either controversial enough or like just is shared that much. So it's been a slow grind. I think the biggest influx of followers I've had is when Reels became introduced, which are like those videos. Because before, my content used to be a lot of photos. And once Reels were introduced, Instagram always wants to push whatever new feature they have. Then I started making Reels. And then I think like one video did okay. And that one video during that very small window of time brought in a lot of followers. A lot meaning like probably like 2,000. That's a lot for.
That's a lot.
It's impressive. It's impressive. It's noticed, and it's really cool. The bone I had to pick with you is today I was watching your video on tongue brushing or tongue scraping, and I'm just gonna have to say I was fairly impressed that here's this young woman very prominently out there, and there's saliva just pouring off of her tongue scraper. And I was like, that took a lot. That's pretty cool. I think you could hang in Texas. So good stuff. I love watching the videos. I'm just like so embarrassing. I don't know. Hey,
so where's the beef, Chad?
There's no beef. I was pretty damn impressed. Maybe jealousy was
no,
the thing.
it sounded like there was going to be a beef.
No.
The whole community is ready for a beef here. What?
No, there's absolutely no
sparring,
beef.
no nothing.
No beef. I'm pretty impressed. I'm old. JB's young, Jeff's older, but I'm old. And this Instagram thing is all new to me. And JB's like, oh, check out Joyce the Dentist. I'm like, oh, she's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, this is impressive. Yeah, I like this stuff. So now, thanks to JB, you were talking about Reels, and I'm sitting here going, yeah, because my wife every night will be sitting in front of the TV. She's like, are you watching those damn Reels again? I'm like, yeah, I'm hooked. So I watch Reels like all night long. It just mesmerizes me.
You should go to TikTok.
Yeah.
That's just one thing that I don't need in my life right now. My kids are really into it, and I'm just
Joyce. He's too busy with his OnlyFans page to have time for that.
Yes.
You got to go where the kids are. So
Yeah.
Instagram is like really good for building a community, but I'm always like, if the kids are there, eventually wherever the kids are, that's the cool platform, and whatever is cool with the kids becomes the trend, and then the old people are always the last to figure out the trend. So.
Well, we're
well said.
we're getting close, but I think we could close on this. We're really focusing on Clubhouse and LinkedIn.
I thought you were going to say your MySpace account. I'm really trying to build our MySpace website.
I'm joking.
Hey, who called it? Who called it on Clubhouse? I called
Yeah,
it.
you did.
I called it
Really?
the day it started, when the only thing that they had was you need an invitation.
Yeah.
You can't be here. I'm like, this is stupid. I knew it.
Are you on
So
Clubhouse?
you're not
Joyce?
on Clubhouse and LinkedIn.
No, I mean we are, but Clubhouse, I can't get into it. I can't do it, and I
knew it. No,
I think it's the shortest lived social media platform there is.
Yeah, let's go back to a Walkman. I mean, that's what it was. Is like, let's go back to radio. I mean, it's an audio profile only that there's a lot of people talking at the same time. But anyway,
are you seeing traction on Clubhouse?
I haven't been on Clubhouse since like the pandemic.
Okay, I didn't want to offend you, but like,
I didn't want to offend you either, but I tend to do that.
I would get 40 or 50 Clubhouse notifications a day when it first started, and now I get one every day at 5:15, and it's the same person. I won't mention her name, but every day it's like, who's on Clubhouse anymore?
You know, when I go on Clubhouse, Chad, like
I know
literally,
what you're talking about.
the phone will be talking out of my pocket, and I'll be on a Clubhouse site because I've butt dialed into Clubhouse. That's
I did that.
Time I get on.
I did that with Laura Brenner Studholme and Jessica Metcalf, and they're like, Chad, could you please silence us?
Right, and then they call you out because they can see who's in the room.
Shit. You turn it off, put your phone down. Just throw the phone. Yeah.
It's time to put y'all back on a flip phone. It's obviously too much technology for you to have a smartphone.
I know. And you know what? Our stupid humor is wasting Joyce's precious time with her little guy. So Jeff, anything else, man? You want to close this out?
I got nothing, Joyce. It was great to have you, and I'm glad I finally got to virtually meet you at least. I'm sure we will all cross paths. Maybe you and Chad will cross paths this weekend if you end up going to CDA. But we really look forward to seeing.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah. Are you going?
Me? I haven't decided yet.
Okay. Well, if you do, look me up. I'd love to meet you in person. We'll get a picture and share it with
Chad at onlyfans.com.
Up with that. It's not that, Jeff. It's Chad
You eat sandwiches with your feet.
Chad D.
Chatty D.
Chad D.
Hey, as we close out, Q Optics is a great partner of our show, and I know that I'm assuming you love your Q Optics. Is there anything that you want to say regarding Q Optics, or are you a big fan?
How did you know that? I love Q Optics. I have 2 pairs of Q Optics, and in dental school, they give you, I mean, as part of your kit, they give you loops. And I was kind of like, eh. But this is the first time I actually realized I like the loops.
Yes.
You know, until you have a loop that you like, you don't know if you like them. You're like, they're loops. But I like these loops a lot. They're really good.
I'm with you 100%. They don't even look like loops. They're comfortable. They're lightweight. They're fantastic. So thank you so much for coming on and agreeing. I know it's actually early there. We've all had dinner and drinks and everything, and you're just kind of getting off work. But thank you so much.
I'm actually laying in the bed right now.
Yeah.
Sweet background you have there.
Yeah, no, this is an artificial background that I have. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Joyce. We really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. You were awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care.